Right now, at this exact moment, Iranian military officials are issuing direct threats against Diego Garcia, the heavily fortified American military installation sitting in the middle of the Indian Ocean, roughly 2,000 miles south of Iran. The Pentagon just confirmed emergency civilian evacuations from the island are underway. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps announced they possess weapons capable of reaching what they call America's unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Indian Ocean. The United States military maintains Diego Garcia serves as the critical staging base for all Middle Eastern operations, housing B-2 stealth bombers, nuclear submarines, and the logistical backbone supporting every American carrier strike group operating from the Persian Gulf to the South China Sea. This represents the first time since the base's establishment in the 1970s that Iran has openly threatened this installation with direct military strikes, crossing a psychological threshold that fundamentally alters the strategic calculus for any potential conflict between Washington and Tehran. Let me walk you through exactly what happened in the past 72 hours. On Monday morning at approximately 0600 hours Tehran time, Brigadier General Amir Ali Hajizadeh, commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Aerospace Force, appeared on Iranian state television announcing a new class of weapons designated as Indian Ocean Reach platforms. Hajizadeh specifically referenced Diego Garcia by name, stating that Iran now possesses the capability to strike American assets wherever they hide in the ocean. Within 3 hours, the Pentagon issued a terse statement confirming they are aware of Iranian statements but declined to comment on specific force protection measures. By Tuesday afternoon at 1400 hours local time, military charter flights began departing Diego Garcia's runway, evacuating approximately 800 American civilian contractors working on the island's extensive support facilities. Wednesday morning brought confirmation from U.S. Central Command that all non-essential personnel are being relocated to facilities in Kuwait and Qatar, while military operations continue at full capacity. As of this recording, satellite imagery from Planet Labs and Maxar shows no visible changes to Iranian missile deployments, but commercial ship tracking data indicates unusual Iranian naval activity in the Gulf of Oman, with 5 vessels from Iran's regular Navy conducting exercises, approximately 600 nautical miles north of Diego Garcia's position. To understand why this matters, you need to understand what Diego Garcia actually represents in American military architecture. This isn't just another overseas base. Diego Garcia functions as the unsinkable aircraft carrier the Pentagon can never afford to lose. The island sits at coordinates 7 degrees south, 72 degrees east, placing it roughly equidistant from the Middle East, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. The installation covers 17 square miles of the British Indian Ocean territory, featuring a 12,000-foot runway capable of handling every aircraft in the American arsenal, from massive C-5 Galaxy cargo planes to B-2 Spirit stealth bombers. The base maintains pre-positioned war stocks including tanks, artillery, ammunition, and fuel sufficient to support a Marine Expeditionary Brigade for 30 days of sustained combat operations without resupply. Diego Garcia's lagoon provides protected anchorage for up to 20 ships, including aircraft carriers, allowing secure refueling, rearming, and maintenance beyond the reach of land-based threats. The Navy operates a satellite communications facility on the island, providing global connectivity for submarine forces throughout the Indian Ocean. During the 1991 Gulf War, B-52 bombers flying from Diego Garcia delivered over 800 combat sorties against Iraqi forces. In 2001, B-2 stealth bombers staged from Diego Garcia struck Taliban positions in Afghanistan during the initial invasion. Every major American military operation in the Middle East, South Asia, or Africa over the past 3 decades has relied on Diego Garcia's logistical support. Iran's claimed capability to threaten this installation would require missile technology significantly beyond what most analysts previously credited to Tehran's arsenal. The distance from Iran's southern coast to Diego Garcia measures approximately 2,300 miles. Iran's longest-range operational ballistic missile, the Khorramshahr-4, possesses a maximum range of 2,000 kilometers, or roughly 1,240 miles, falling short by over 1,000 miles. To reach Diego Garcia, Iran would require either ballistic missiles with range exceeding 3,500 kilometers, cruise missiles with equivalent range and sufficient fuel capacity, or alternative delivery methods like submarine launch systems. Western intelligence assessments have long maintained that Iran's ballistic missile program focuses on regional targets within 2,000-kilometer radius, specifically designed to threaten Israel, American bases throughout the Middle East, and European targets in NATO member nations. A genuine capability to strike Diego Garcia would indicate either a dramatic leap in Iranian missile technology or acquisition of advanced systems from foreign suppliers, most likely Russia or China. However, Iran possesses several theoretical pathways to make good on these threats, even without missiles capable of direct strikes from Iranian territory. First, Iran operates a modest submarine fleet, including 3 Kilo-class diesel-electric submarines purchased from Russia in the 1990s, and an unknown number of domestically produced Fateh-class midget submarines. While these vessels lack the range to patrol Indian Ocean waters directly from Iranian bases, they could potentially deploy to forward operating positions using Iranian commercial shipping as cover, carrying cruise missiles capable of attacking maritime targets. Second, Iran maintains extensive relationships with proxy forces throughout the Middle East and South Asia. Iranian weapons regularly appear in Yemen, where Houthi forces operate, in Syria, where Hezbollah maintains presence, and in Iraq, where Iranian-aligned militias control territory. A sophisticated attack on Diego Garcia might involve positioning Iranian weapon systems in third-party territory, using proxy forces as operational cover while maintaining plausible deniability. Third, Iran has demonstrated proficiency in unconventional warfare, including cyber operations, sabotage, and covert action. Rather than conventional missile strikes, Iran might attempt to degrade Diego Garcia's capabilities through cyber attacks against communications infrastructure, infiltration of sabotage teams targeting fuel storage or electrical systems, or attacks against the vulnerable undersea cables connecting the island to global networks. From Washington's perspective, any genuine threat to Diego Garcia represents an existential challenge to American power projection throughout the Indo-Pacific region. The Pentagon's entire operational concept for Middle Eastern conflicts depends on Diego Garcia's invulnerability. American war plans assume that while forward bases in Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates might face missile attacks during any Iran conflict, Diego Garcia remains beyond Iran's reach, providing secure fallback position where aircraft can operate without threat of ground attack. If Iran demonstrates actual capability to strike Diego Garcia, the United States loses its sanctuary base, fundamentally altering the military balance. American forces would require alternative staging areas, likely in Australia or possibly the Maldives, adding thousands of miles to operational ranges and dramatically increasing costs and complexity of any military campaign. The psychological impact of a successful strike against Diego Garcia would reverberate across American defense planning, potentially calling into question the entire overseas base network that America relies upon for global power projection. From Iran's perspective, threatening Diego Garcia serves multiple strategic objectives, even if the actual capability remains questionable. First, the threat demonstrates that Iran refuses to concede American military dominance, maintaining offensive posture despite massive conventional disadvantages. By claiming ability to strike America's most secure facility, Iran signals that nowhere remains safe during any potential conflict, potentially deterring American military action by raising the costs of escalation. Second, the threat serves domestic political purposes, projecting strength to Iranian hardliners who demand aggressive posture toward the United States. With Iran's economy suffering under American sanctions and domestic discontent rising, the regime needs to demonstrate capability and resolve to maintain political support. Third, the threat provides diplomatic leverage in any negotiations over nuclear programs, sanctions relief, or regional security arrangements. By elevating perceived threat level, Iran increases its bargaining position, suggesting that containing Iranian power requires accommodation rather than confrontation. According to Dr. Michael Eisenstadt, Director of Military and Security Studies at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, Iran's threat against Diego Garcia represents psychological warfare rather than genuine operational capability. Eisenstadt analyzed Iranian statements and concluded that Tehran lacks both the missile technology and delivery systems necessary to conduct effective strikes at extreme range. However, Eisenstadt warned against dismissing the threat entirely, noting that Iran has repeatedly demonstrated ability to develop unexpected capabilities, citing the 2019 attack on Saudi Arabian oil facilities that revealed sophisticated drone and cruise missile technology that intelligence services had underestimated. Multiple reports from Jane's Defense Weekly suggest that Iran may have acquired detailed technical assistance from North Korea or Russia for extended-range missile development, though no definitive evidence confirms such cooperation. Intelligence assessments suggest that Iran possesses the theoretical knowledge to develop intercontinental range ballistic missiles, but faces manufacturing constraints and material shortages that prevent actual production. The civilian evacuation from Diego Garcia provides the most concrete indicator of American threat assessment. The Pentagon doesn't evacuate personnel based on empty rhetoric. The decision to relocate 800 civilian contractors suggests intelligence indicating either credible attack planning or increased probability of Iranian action stemming from escalating regional tensions. Evacuation timelines and methods provide additional clues. A gradual drawdown over several days suggests precautionary measures based on general threat elevation. Rapid emergency evacuation within hours would indicate specific intelligence about imminent attack. The current evacuation appears to follow the precautionary model, with orderly charter flights rather than emergency military transport, suggesting elevated caution rather than immediate danger. However, the very fact of evacuation signals that American intelligence community takes Iranian statements seriously enough to implement protective measures, lending credibility to the threat, even if actual attack probability remains low. There are three possible scenarios for how this situation develops over the coming weeks. Scenario 1 represents diplomatic de-escalation where both sides step back from confrontation. Probability assessment, approximately 30%. For this pathway to succeed, Iran would need to claim it demonstrated resolve through threats while refraining from actual provocations. The United States would need to avoid public responses that corner Iran into following through on threats to save face. Behind-the-scenes diplomatic communications through intermediaries in Oman or Switzerland could provide off-ramps where both sides achieve domestic political objectives without actual military confrontation. This scenario requires that current threats serve primarily as negotiating posture rather than genuine attack preparation, and that cooler heads prevail in both Tehran and Washington, despite significant domestic pressure for aggressive action. Watch for signals including renewed diplomatic contacts, Iranian officials walking back specific threats while maintaining general rhetoric, and gradual return of evacuated civilians to Diego Garcia within 2 weeks. Scenario 2 involves limited Iranian probes, testing American defenses without full-scale attack. Probability assessment, approximately 50%. This represents the most likely pathway where Iran conducts demonstration actions short of direct strikes against American forces. Possible actions include increased naval activity near Diego Garcia, deployment of Iranian vessels or submarines into the Indian Ocean for surveillance purposes, cyber attacks against base communications or support systems, or attacks against commercial shipping associated with Diego Garcia support contracts. Iran could claim these actions demonstrate capability while avoiding mass American casualties that would trigger overwhelming retaliation. The United States would likely respond with increased military presence around Diego Garcia, enhanced air and naval patrols, possible defensive strikes against Iranian naval vessels conducting aggressive maneuvers, and accelerated deployment of missile defense systems to the region. This scenario allows both sides to demonstrate resolve while maintaining escalation control. Watch for Iranian naval deployments beyond the Persian Gulf, increased American P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol activity in the Indian Ocean, cyber incidents affecting base operations, and diplomatic communications attempting to establish rules of engagement for this limited confrontation. Scenario 3 represents catastrophic escalation where Iran attempts actual strikes against Diego Garcia, triggering full American retaliation. Probability assessment, approximately 20%. This nightmare pathway could materialize if Iranian hardliners conclude that demonstrating capability requires actual attack, if miscalculation or technical failure causes unintended escalation, or if regional dynamics create pressure for Iranian action despite the risks. A successful strike against Diego Garcia causing American casualties would create overwhelming domestic pressure for massive retaliation. President Trump or any American leader would face political impossibility of restrained response to an attack on sovereign American military territory. Within 72 hours of any successful Iranian strike, American B-2 bombers and submarine-launched cruise missiles would likely target Iranian missile facilities, Revolutionary Guard headquarters, and potentially leadership compounds. Iran would activate all regional proxy forces, including Hezbollah against Israel, militia forces in Iraq against American personnel, and Houthi attacks against Saudi Arabia and maritime targets. The Strait of Hormuz would close immediately as Iran deploys mines and anti-ship missiles, cutting off 21% of global oil supplies. Oil prices would spike above $120 per barrel within days. The regional conflict could draw in Israel conducting strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities, Saudi Arabia intervening against Iranian proxies, and potentially Russian or Chinese diplomatic intervention, attempting to prevent American strikes against Iranian territory. This scenario requires multiple failures of deterrence and communication, but history demonstrates that such failures occur more frequently than rational models predict. Watch for 5 critical indicators over the next 48 to 72 hours that will reveal which scenario is materializing. First, Iranian naval movements. If Iranian vessels begin deploying beyond typical patrol areas into the Arabian Sea or Indian Ocean, offensive posture increases substantially. Commercial satellite tracking services monitor these movements in real time. Second, American force deployments. If additional carrier strike groups or bomber squadrons deploy to the region beyond normal rotations, Pentagon war planning is advancing. Third, diplomatic communications. If either Oman or Switzerland announces hosting talks between American and Iranian representatives, diplomatic pathway remains viable. Fourth, Iranian domestic messaging. If Supreme Leader Khamenei makes a major public address, his specific language about negotiations versus confrontation will signal Tehran's chosen path. Fifth, commercial shipping patterns. If insurance rates spike for vessels transiting near Diego Garcia, or if shipping companies begin rerouting away from the area, markets are pricing in genuine conflict probability above baseline expectations. I'm monitoring this situation continuously through multiple intelligence streams, including satellite imagery analysis, military tracking networks, diplomatic reporting, and expert assessment from defense think tanks. The threat to Diego Garcia isn't just another rhetorical escalation in the endless cycle of Middle Eastern tensions. This represents a potential inflection point where Iran signals willingness to challenge American military dominance in ways that previous Iranian leadership avoided. The evacuation of American civilians isn't theater. The Pentagon doesn't relocate people for public relations purposes. Something has changed in the intelligence picture, either regarding Iranian capabilities or Iranian intentions or both. Subscribe to this channel right now and activate all notifications because the next 72 hours will determine whether we're witnessing sophisticated bluffing or actual preparation for the most significant military confrontation between Iran and the United States since the 1979 hostage crisis. Drop your analysis in the comments. Do you believe Iran possesses genuine capability to strike Diego Garcia? Do you think this represents negotiating tactic or actual war preparation? Do you assess the evacuation as precautionary or response to specific intelligence? I read every comment and your perspectives matter. The clock is running. Diego Garcia represents the keystone of American power projection across half the planet. If Iran can credibly threaten that keystone, everything changes. Thanks for watching. Stay informed. The next development could break at any moment.